I had a friend who was also a fellow Augustinian priest. We were pretty much age mates, who sadly died at a very young age. But he was quite a character, and very comical, and also very engaged with life and church and politics and all of that. And he could be pretty bombastic when he got going in a discussion. And once in a while, it would happen that a group of us might be sitting around talking and discussing some topic, either lightly or more seriously, and we'd be kind of throwing comments back and forth and so on, and he would be part of it. And then what sometimes would happen is Pat would get up, and he'd just come over here, and he'd start talking. And of course, we'd say, "What are you doing?" And he'd say, "I might as well. Nobody listens to me. Nobody listens to me. I might as well talk to the wall." There is that expression that maybe some of us use once in a while when we're frustrated, when we feel as though people aren't listening to us. I might as well just talk to the wall. Sometimes, too, we feel or wonder whether God is listening. Whether God is listening to us in prayer. Or should we just pray to the wall? It reminds me of the story I think I've shared before. It's a good one, where that kind of captures the frustration that we can feel at times when we're having a hard time, and maybe even kind of discouraged, and we're really seriously praying and asking God for direction and assistance. So there was this lone survivor of a shipwreck, and he kind of managed to get to this island that turned out to be deserted. And so he kind of set up a little camp there with just a few things that he had managed to salvage from the sinking ship. And he was a devout Christian, so he began to pray for deliverance, that some ship would come by and would save him. And day passed, day after day, and nobody showed, and he continued his prayer. And after a few days, he actually built himself a little hut out of some of the trees and big leaves and so on. And so he started to get a little settled there, but at the same time, he wanted to get off that island. And he continued to pray. Every day he would go right to the shore, or right to the edge of the water, and pray that God would deliver him. And after some days, even weeks, he was there at the water's edge, praying that God would send someone to save him. And he heard something and smelled something and turned around, and there was the hut that he had built on fire, burned up to a crisp. Well, this guy was now really frustrated, and he started to shake his fist at heaven. And he was so angry, so discouraged, so frustrated, so depressed that God did not hear him, that he was exhausted from those feelings, and he fell asleep. And after an hour or so, he actually woke up, and there, coming toward him, was a lifeboat from a ship that was just not too far out. And he thought he was dreaming. But the captain who was in the lifeboat came ashore and said, "We saw your smoke signal." The story captures not only the frustration that we can sometimes feel in our prayer, but it also captures an aspect of our faith and an aspect of our understanding of God. And that is that not only does God promise to be attentive to us, to be near us, but frequently he lets that be known to us in surprising ways that we never imagined. Today's scriptures on this third Sunday of Lent are kind of dotted with this metaphor of thirsting and satisfying our thirst with water. The people, the Jews, are wandering in the desert. They've left Egypt, but they've been gone long enough to really start to get tired of this desert thing. And they're frustrated. And as the reading ends, they are wondering, is God with us or not? Are we just talking to a wall? We're thirsty. We need water. And God, in fact, sends a message to Moses of how he can strike the rock and satisfy their thirst. And of course, we can take that in faith on a spiritual level and think of the spiritual kind of thirsts that we have in life. What are we really thirsting for in our everyday lives? What do we really need? What are we longing for? And how might God fulfill that? Do we trust that God, in fact, does have a plan that even accommodates our thirsts? In the second reading, we hear that the love of God is poured into our hearts like some kind of beverage, maybe your favorite drink. And in the gospel, the famous passage, the story of Jesus meeting the Samaritan woman, and discovering here, the Samaritan woman discovering in a surprising sort of way that this is the Messiah that we've heard about for so long. He's talking to me, a Samaritan woman. Remember, in those days, Jews did not talk to Samaritans at all, and especially not to women, and especially not to a Samaritan woman who had had 5 husbands. And yet here was the surprising presence of the Messiah, asking her for a drink, but also telling her that he's the living water that can satisfy every human thirst. As we continue our Lenten journey, we may well be mindful of those thirsts that we have in life. We may well be mindful of how we pray to God for some direction, some deliverance. And we're renewed in that faith that says, even though sometimes it doesn't feel like it, God is near, God is attentive, and he can make himself present to us even in surprising ways. So be on the watch and don't miss him when he comes.